Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a very crazy week and all of my plans to be prepared for just be prepared for my channel did not happen. So I was actually we like write letters back and forth, but I was talking with a friend of mine and I was saying how one of the things that I really dislike about YouTube is that I can never get the perfect setting that I would so love to have. And, I live a perfectly imperfect life, as the cliche goes, I believe. So, this is just me, and this is just what you get. But today is money, and it's Money Management Monday, and I know that many of you look forward to these videos, so this one's gonna be probably a little bit more like biblical, spiritual than I normally do, because today's video, as you saw, is more about like my financial goals. And almost any time I have goals or something, I really try to make sure that anytime I make any kind of goals, I really try to make sure that it lines up with what Scripture would have us do. It's very easy to say that you're going to have all these goals, but if they really don't go in line with Scripture, then I am not, and then I am praying, God, lead me in the way that you would have me go, while choosing everything that's kind of opposite of what His will is, then I'm kind of working against so much here. Anyway, so I decided to write down these goals because one day I was really thinking about how many people, especially like within the Dave Ramsey community, the main goal, right, in a Dave Ramsey community is to complete all of the baby steps. So my husband and I, we have done the first 3 baby steps. Well, sort of. We have about 3 months saved for the baby step 3. So if something were to happen to his income, I have about that saved up based on a $2,000 a month income. So we have emergency fund, and then on top of that we have the 3 to 6 month saved. And that isn't oh my goodness, the car broke down, we need to pull out all of that money. That 3 to 6 months has always just stayed away into savings. We don't look at it. We don't touch it. It stays in there because we have been in a place where we have not been able to work for a month. That has happened in our lives before, and money comes in handy when bills are there and no money is coming in. So we have that. I think baby step 4 is save 15% of your retirement on a consistent basis. And that is something that would be nice, but after a very simple calculation, let's just do this out of curiosity, I don't have $300 every month to save 15% towards my husband's retirement. And we wouldn't have anything to put that in. We don't have a Roth, we have nothing. So once we get to this point, actually my financial goals come in here. Financial goals aren't so much, I want $100,000 in this thing, I want this done, I want this done. The financial goals I have are kind of a long-term mindset, living in an intentional way so that this becomes a habit. Again, I kind of talked that I'll be using my Bible a lot as a Christian. Again, these goals kind of just, it's important to me that they line up. I've never actually sat down and put this to paper. I've always kind of had it in my head, had it in the back of my mind. So this is kind of good. And then I just pulled the verses that I know to kind of back up my beliefs in this. But Philippians 4:11 says, "Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have." Verse 12 says, "I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength." That has always just kind of been this idea in my head that we need to think about our lives in a way that we can be content in whatever situation we're given in, whether we're given money or not. My goal has never been to be a millionaire. Actually, the thought of having so much money is very stressful to me. What would you do if you ever won the lottery, you know? There is a movie that I absolutely love with Gary Cooper, and it's called Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. And in that movie, he actually ends up with a lot of wealth, and then he kind of realizes just how messed up everybody is around him because of this wealth. And in that movie, he decides that he's going to give his money away. Like, he's like, I don't want anything to do with it. I'm done. It just causes stress and whatever, I'm giving it away. And there was this brilliant courtroom scene with him, and it's just, oh, I love that movie. Adam Sandler, I think it's the name, did a remake on it, and it's nothing as good as that old one, with Gary Cooper and Gene Crane. Phenomenal movie. That's kind of how I would be if I ended up with millions of dollars. Be like, let's kind of go to hospitals and see what hospital bills debt we can pay off. Let's go to mortgages. Let's just get rid of this as much as we can. If I could, I'd be like, let's get rid of our nation debt. But yeah, life doesn't work out that way. So I will do it in other ways that I could. So I've never had this idea of being wealthy for wealthy's sake. I don't ever foresee us being in that position, so that's really nice. But because of that, I have a different mindset with financial goals. You can be wealthy in so many different ways. It's not just a monetary thing. And I am genuinely wealthy just with my family and all of what that encompasses and how we live our life. I'm really, really wealthy in this. So there's that. I want to be content in all things, and it's kind of like being a sod buster. You know, as a farmer, you plant the crops that you know that you can take care of. You're going to plant a little bit extra because, well, it's going to be eaten up by birds and whatnot, and you're not only planting for what you need, you're planting what you can sell, and you're also planting because you're going to need it to grow. And that's kind of how I look at wealth. I'm going to need wealth so that we can live enough on right now. I'm also going to need wealth it's going to get eaten up. It's just, that's how life works. The birds are going to come. The bunnies are going to come. Some of that's just going to get eaten up. I'm going to need some that I can sell. In this case, you know, money kind of building money. In this case, I would actually look at it more as I want some kind of wealth in order to help and bless others. And then I need wealth that can help me regrow my money. So that's, you know, an sod buster look of that for financials. So in going into that, I'm going to talk about the last bit of those seeds, just because it's the first one on my list and I don't want to have to go back and forth. And that is you plant so that you have seeds to grow more again later, right? Proverbs 13:22 says, the godly man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the sinner's wealth passes on to the godly. In this case, I want this money to be able to be used for my children, my grandchildren. I kind of think of it in such a way that at some point I'm not going to be able to take care of myself. I would like not to be a burden to my children, and then leave something for them, whatever way that can. Again, wealth, this talks about wealth and inheritance. There isn't anything very specific here as to money. So this doesn't necessarily mean money. It can mean other things like wealth of knowledge. It can mean an inheritance of just richness, you know, maybe like quilts. I have my great grandmother's quilt, and I have a knitted blanket my grandmother made, and I have stuff that my mom put together. So I have those inheritance. My husband's books may one day be something my kids really like. I don't know. Not so much stuff, but at the same time, like, how many people have like their great-grandmother's recipe book and things like that? So it's not just wealth, but it can be. And in this case, I would be very careful, because one of the things that I think about is how often the Bible warns us against the love of money, and how the rich man had a very difficult time giving up everything he had in order to follow Jesus. But we know that godly men can have wealth. There's Abraham and David and Solomon and so on and so forth. There's many more godly men that had wealth. And so it is possible, but it is harder. And I think about these very rich men in our world today that don't have anything other than money to pass down to their children, and you can already see like these children just squander it away. There is no appreciation for what has been built up. And that's nothing new. That is nothing new. That has been around for generations. So I would like to save up for my children's children, so that they have something to kind of get them going. And how God uses that's for a later time. One of the things that is very prevalent in today's world, and I fall into this trap so many times, and it's also from Proverbs 13. Proverbs 13:11 says, "Wealth from get-rich schemes quickly disappear, but wealth from hard work grows over time." Not to bash down like multi-level marketing, but I'm going to use that as an example. Quite oftentimes when people learn that I have all these side businesses, they're quick to say, look, I am a rep for Young Living Oils, and look what you could make. I did Scentsy for a while, and I was like, look what you could make. There's other things a part of this, and first of all, I have always had a rule that I don't sell anything that has to do with medical, because I have seen that side of life, and the hopes that are crushed, or the promises that people buy into. You just can't do that with anything medical, anything. And I had people really push me for, hey, we sell Asana, I think was one, which is some kind of like multivitamin that changed this person's life, and look how much she's making. So all of these things, they take a lot of hard work, and they do take time to grow. But the amount of work to grow the business, to make it to what these people are having to do, that is a get-rich scheme for me. Because in order to get that, I would have to really push hard, kind of go outside my comfort zone to do that. And I'm not comfortable doing that. And then you have to keep that momentum going. And so it's very hard to keep that up. So get rich, why is that such a tongue twister? Get rich quick schemes, just not for me. Not that all multi-level marketing is, but I tend to lump those together with that. Slowly and steady to build wealth. That may mean that I'm babysitting until I can't get up in the morning because I'm so old. I don't know. It may mean that for the rest of my life I'm doing all these little side businesses. But I am hoping that those little nest eggs are being used wisely. And I don't want to just have all these side businesses and work myself to the bone, lose time that is precious, to one day say, look, I have $500 to hand down to you guys. I want it to be something more than that. I want it to be a ministry that left an inheritance to others. I want it to be this, I look at it this way, okay? And I think I've used this story before, but I love this story so much, and I actually have two, and I love them so much. There's two stories that have always stuck in my head about this. There's actually more. They all stick with me. But one of them is about this woman who gets married, and she has this cardboard box. You might have heard me say this one already. She has this cardboard box, and she has it on her wedding day, and she puts it up into the cupboard, and she tells her husband, don't get into that box. she's on her deathbed, and her husband finally gets that cardboard box down and looks inside and sees what it is, and there's a wad of cash, and there's 2 doilies. One is finished, and the other one I think is mostly finished. But so he takes the box to the hospital and says, you know, what is this? And she says, you know, when we first got married, my mom gave me that box with crochet yarn and a crochet hook, and my mom told me, anytime you're mad at your husband, just make a doily. And the husband was so touched. He's like, in all our years of being married, 50 odd years, she's only been married at me twice. And then he looks at the wad of money and he's like, well, what is this for? She's like, oh, that's all the money I made selling the doilies. And, you know, it's that slow and steady gaining of wealth that, you know, those kind of things stick in my mind. I also kind of think of Double Jeopardy. It's a movie with Ashley Judd and Tommy Lee Jones. Careful watching it if you decide to watch it after hearing this recommendation. But at one point, Ashley Judd is on parole, and she is on the run to go get back to her husband that set her up for his murder. And what Double Jeopardy is, you can't be tried twice for the same crime. So she's already been tried for her husband's murder, so she's going to go back and murder him. Like, hey, I can't be tried twice for the same murder, so you're going to put this on me, then I'm going to do it. Again, can't really recommend it. It's really good, though. And at one point, again, being on the run, she goes to her mom's house, and her mom takes her out to this garden where there's all these tomatoes, and she just starts digging into the ground, and she pulls up this metal box and pulls out a wad of cash and gives it to her daughter and says, here you go. And daughter's like, where'd you get all this? And she's like, tomatoes pay really well. And it's just, again, all these accumulations of overtime. That's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be that mom. Okay, if my kid is after her husband to commit double jeopardy, I probably won't be that mom. I'll be the mom that's on the phone saying, police, she's over here, come get her now. But, you know, hey, mom, we're about ready to be foreclosed on because we haven't been able to pay the mortgage in so amount of time. Hold on, kid, let me go out to the garden, dig in my tomato bed, give you some. Let me go to the closet and pull down my little cardboard box of crocheted doilies, give you some money, pay off your mortgage. I want to be that mom. Again, work slowly and steadily to build the wealth. Going back to our little garden of life, the sodbuster view, you know, you have some for right now, and you have some way to help others, then you have some replant for the future. I want to go to that, and that is to be prepared for the future. And the Proverbs 31 wife has always really been my inspiration behind this. Man, if there's anybody that inspires me, it's this ideal woman, right? And Proverbs 31:11 says, the heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so he will have no lack of gain. It's not a verse about giving him a financial gain. It's actually just enhancing his life really well. Actually, that's how I learned it. I learned it the NASB way, but this is the NLT, and the NLT says, her husband can trust her and she will greatly enrich his life. My husband, I know I have said this, I think in other videos, I'm not sure, but my husband's like 20 years older than me. My husband's actually a year older than my mom. And just to throw this in because I love this so much. My mom had been waiting for this day. And when my husband finally went to my parents and said, I would like to marry your daughter, my mom instantly was like, you know, David, my husband's name is David, I've always wanted a son. I just thought I would have one that was a little bit younger than myself. Like, Fiddler on the Roof fans will totally get that. But she had been waiting forever to say that. And I was like, yes! So, my husband's 20 years older than me. And already, like, this year we'll have been married 15 years. And I was looking the other day just on pictures just from 15 years ago. And I'm really starting to see my husband just break down. Our height difference is not, there is no height difference anymore. He's already starting to shrink. He's already starting to get arthritis symptoms. And just hard work is getting a lot harder now. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to work the way he does. He has always worked so hard. He has done so many jobs. He was a blacksmith. He was a carpenter. He worked in construction and also like did cabinets for homes and things like that. He's done a lot of that. He has been a mechanic, and now he is working in a lumber yard at Ace, and it's really heavy and hard work. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to do that. I'm already starting to see a lot of aches and pains and just fatigue, serious fatigue. And I would love to get to a point in all these side incomes, probably not like the babysitting, but all of these little side things that I'm doing so that we can have a lighter job that maybe doesn't bring a lot of money in, but just kind of help, and then have these side hustles that just help us keep going. So that my husband can trust me financially. That's actually a really big one. That one chokes me up every time I think about it. Excuse me. I had to take care of kids I babysit. Basically, I just really want to make sure that my husband has the help he needs, and I want to be that wife for him. And honestly, Proverbs 31 really talks a lot about different ways that we can be financial help. But another financial goal, so this is long term, this isn't the short term, but it is to trust not in this wealth, but to trust in the one who supplies our wealth. And that is from Proverbs 11:28. The hopes of the godly result in happiness, but the expectations of the wicked come to nothing. And it makes me like, how does that have to do with financial goals or anything? Going back to that farmer, and how many of us just know that one of the farmer's struggles is good crops, good weather for the crops, a good yield to what you do. Someone can plant, but it's God who brings the harvest. And so all of these things that I do, I don't want to put my hopes and dreams on them. I want to make sure that I'm doing things that, take a drink and think on how I would have worded this. For a Christian, this world is not our home. That we're not to store up treasures on this earth. We're to put our hope in what is to come, into heaven. There is a balance between living life here on earth, living the life that God has put us here on earth to live, and living that in the best way that we can, that purifies us and makes us more holy, refined, and just living day-to-day life out, just waiting for heaven. Like, oh, I can't wait to be done with this world. I'm just waiting for heaven. It's like that, in a way, diminishes that God has created you, and that He has given you this life. So it's kind of like this "don't waste your life" type of mentality. So financially, I would just really like to, again, not trust in these side businesses. Know that what God has planned for us, He will bring to us if we are open to His will and to following it and to living out the best that we can. I think that's just going to have to be the best way that I can say it, because I feel like I'm probably stumbling over this one. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 says, "Make it your goal to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands, just as we instructed you before. Then people who are not believers will respect the way you live, and you will not need to depend on others." So it kind of goes back to my goal, which is to live in such a way that we are not dependent for anyone for our needs and wants. And it is just having small enough needs so that our needs will be supplied by God, and what is not supplied is obviously not a need. And that's kind of going back to the farmer, having your seeds prepared for next year so you can keep planting and keep sustaining yourself through that. And then finally, the other financial goal I just have written down, I'm sure I could go on forever and ever on this, is just having the wealth to help meet needs of others, like true needs. And that is a biblical Christian church thing. Like, meet the needs of the saints. Those, the household of faith is where we're supposed to meet first. Those needs are to be met first. It's really hard for me to understand just the needs of what we have today versus the ones that we feel entitled to. Living in the town that I lived in growing up, common knowledge to go to a church to have different bills paid for. And there's genuinely some people have deep needs for that. They're generally the last people to go seek out help, by the way. The ones that just expect everybody to pay for their mistakes are the ones that are the first in line and expect them. And that gets to a point where people have helped them so much that when there really is a need, they're not getting it because they have pretty much used it all. There are some people that just can't get a break. I get that and I understand. And having worked with the food bank in my area, and I knew some of the people that ran that, one of the things that they would be like is, this person does need help. Do you know of someone that could help? And that person was in a constant need because they just couldn't get a break. And there are some people like that. And I'm really glad that this person knew to go to the church. But for the most part, the church gives help to those that they can bring into the church. Not necessarily those that are in the church. It's like, well, you're here. We just need to fill more people into our church. And so lots of money goes into programs that just buy people into the seats. It doesn't really help those within the faith. And then those that really do need it, the single moms, the ones that have realized that they have messed up and try to get back on and try to get going and have the really hard time asking for help, typically don't get it. The elderly that are just barely eking by each month. It's kind of like, well, you've lived life. You've had good times. It's now your time. It's kind of like this mentality that people have. You've had good times. Now it's our turn. And I don't want to live that way. Anyway, so those are kind of my financial goals, and I don't really want to turn this into a really long video or really chatty video, and I'm not sure how much I'll be able to edit it. I know I say this every time. But I hope this gives you some idea when I do these other videos of kind of walking you through budgets, kind of walking you through different things. Knowing what those goals are, you can kind of see how that starts to play in how you manage your money. Putting these out like this was really good for me. February just was a wash for my finances. I really just got to a point where I didn't care. Just kind of was like, I don't care. Whatever. And that didn't really help. What are you doing? That's kind of unfortunate because that's not going to affect us so much this month. It's going to affect us next month. That's why I would really recommend you sit down and figure out those financial goals. Again, having like that sodbuster view for me was a visual representation of what I am trying to do, where I'm at in different stages of my life with our finances. Right now, we're probably more likely as not seed planting. And that is just this building of our family, knowing that more expenses are coming, and I want to be prepared for them. I don't want to be caught unaware and all of that. So this is this week's Money Management Monday videos. I know we're going into March, but if you haven't made any financial goals, maybe sit down and just make out a few. I know last time I kind of showed you my mortgage payoff and like my car savings. Those are definitely ones that are still here, but as a sod-buster view of financial goals, a whole picture, a whole landscape, these kind of are what I have. And insofar as my husband, I know that this does from time to time does get asked. Insofar as my husband, he's not a spender, so he's like, if there's not a need, I'm not going to spend it. He doesn't buy anything other than a need, and I am not like that. But in terms of financial goals, if I were to sit down and say, okay, let's look at it this way, he's just like, just don't spend it and put it in the bank, and that's his goal. Other than, like, well, what do you want to do with this, and should we do that, and what about this? He's like, well, I can't think about that. I have to go to work. So in this case, we don't have kind of that dynamic word that I can't think of. But maybe for you and your spouse, you guys have those kinds of things that you're going to want to work out with. If I showed that to my husband, there wouldn't be anything that he disagrees on, except maybe helping others. That is more of a, let's look at this very carefully and make sure that we're not going to hurt ourselves. Whereas I'm like, somebody's about ready to be put on the streets. We need to go help them. So, and he's just more cautious. Like, why don't we just help him a little bit? And that has nothing to do with, I kind of look at it as a Martin Luther and Kitty Luther kind of thing. Martin Luther was very just kind of throw money out. Hey, this is a need that needs to be met. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. And Kitty would go and say, you're going to just use all our money, and how are we going to feed the kids? And we kind of have that dynamic back and forth. So he's just more like, and then when we actually need it, there's not going to be anything there. What the heck are you doing, Shalise? And I'm just like, there's a need to be met. We need to meet those needs. Like, why does it always have to be you that meets that need, though? So, we kind of have that dynamic going. I keep using that word, and I don't think it means what I think it means. All right, so I've jabbered long enough. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have financial goals, and how do you make those? Again, just knowing what the Bible says, it kind of has that groundwork for me, and then I kind of build my thoughts on that. So maybe I'll read a verse one day and it'll make me think, oh, this is something that we as Christians should be striving for. Alright, enough jabbering. I'll talk to you next week on another Money Management Monday, and I'll see you then.